Many atheists use Giordano Bruno as a scientist, as an example of a scientist that was killed by religious dogma, and particularly by Christians. However, we will be looking into this. Was he really actually killed for his scientific beliefs? Bruno, for example, in his day, scorned the methodology of science, as in with empirical tests and observable studies. That isn't the way that he was going about his understanding of the world. His beliefs about the universe were similar to Galileo and Copernicus, and these two really didn't have a whole lot of trouble with what they were talking about in their day. Some of their beliefs went unnoticed by many. Now, this is controversial with Galileo because many people also think that Galileo was killed for his scientific inquiry, which this is false also. I have a video on that. But no, Galileo was not put to death at all. Now, someone would argue that he was put into house arrest for science. Well, not necessarily. That's a longer topic. In short, Galileo was put in house arrest because of his attack on the Pope, not because of his scientific views. Now, Bruno's death was a result of his heretical views of Jesus, but it had nothing to do with his scientific understanding of the world. In the day, Bruno denied Jesus' birth by a virgin of Mary. He denied the Trinitarian viewpoint of God, and he denied transubstantiation, which were all very big no-nos in the Catholic Church of that day. Now again, this doesn't make it right, but it is factually incorrect to say that Bruno was killed because of his scientific understanding. That's just incorrect. There's just no way to go about it to say that. No source we have supports the hypothesis that he was killed because of his scientific beliefs such as heliocentrism. We don't really have anything of that can support this. Now, we do have some of the early sources that describe him being questioned about his heliocentristic viewpoint of the world, but we don't see any kind of condemnation of Bruno because of this. We have multiple. There's the one charge is the Venetian Inquisition in 1591. Some sources were probably lost when Napoleon took some of the papal archives to Paris somewhere around 1810 and 1813, some 200 years or so after these events took place. But we also do have a source from Gaspard Chaupe, or Chope. He included all the heretical theological views of Bruno. Here we do see the mention of many worlds, the belief that each star had planets, as us, and etc. But the surviving notes of the trial focus on his theology, not his science. And this is a really important fact about the death of Bruno. And again, I will not be arguing that it was correct, but I'm just trying to just go against the idea that many online atheists try to say that Bruno was a martyr for science. And this really goes into the days of the Edward Gibbons and what have you, about how religion is a bad thing, and religion and science have been in this conflict for centuries and centuries, and it's time for us to rid religion of the world. As the Enlightenment myths began, it is time for the new Enlightenment figures to bring the light to the world in the same way that the Protestants were bringing light to the world from the Catholics bringing darkness, I should say, to the world, as a Protestant would say. The Enlightenment figures just picked up on these same exact myths of the Protestants and went about it in that way. They just tried to argue from those kinds of senses, and the Enlightenment thinkers were wrong, but there's still many, many people that think these things today. But yes, these are two main examples. I have a particular video on Galileo also, if someone would like to see a deeper detail about Galileo's trial. But certainly, the topic of this video, Bruno was not a martyr for science. Ironically, one last thing we could go over is Bruno. It's very hard to call Bruno a scientist, particularly in the way that we all think of scientists today. The first part of the video I mentioned about how he disagreed with the methodologies of science. He didn't believe in empirical testing, observable testing, and he also didn't even like the use of mathematics. And if any of you are aware of any understanding of science, you kind of have to have the empirical side, the observable side, and the mathematical side. They all coincide. Take something like the other scientists that were actual scientists of his day, such as Newton and Kepler and what have you. Could you imagine any of those people going around saying, I just don't believe in the mathematical understanding of the world, when 90% of their work is based in the mathematical framework of the world. So it's very difficult to even label Bruno as a scientist, because most historians will say he just wasn't a scientist at all. In the vlog article by Tim O'Neill of History for Atheists, he describes Bruno to a modern-day mystic named Deepak Chopra. I also like the comparison to Billy Carson, but that's really all I have, so thank you all for watching, and like and subscribe for more content like this.